Hi guys, myself Salman Khan come up with another new video from the YouTube channel Chand Baatein. Today I will tell you about the history of shoes and also the reality of shoes. Before that, if you haven't subscribed my channel, then please subscribe it and also press the bell button to get timely notification of each of my upcoming videos. Friends, don't be upset, our video today is going to be a bit little longer, but you are going to get a lot of informations from this video because you are going to find the reality of shoes. So friends, let's begin. A shoe is an item of footwear intended to protect and comfort the human foot. Shoes are also used as an item of decoration and fashion. The design of shoes has varied enormously through time and from culture to culture, with appearance originally being tied to function. Though the human foot is adapted to varied terrain and climate conditions, it is still vulnerable to environmental hazards such as sharp rocks and temperature extremes, which shoes protect against. Some shoes are worn as safety equipment, such as steel soled boots, which are required on construction sites. Additionally, fashion has often dictated many design elements, such as whether shoes have very high heels or flat ones. Contemporary footwear varies widely in style, complexity, and cost. Basic sandals may consist of only a thin sole and simple strap and be sold for a low cost. High fashion shoes made by famous designers may be made of expensive materials, use complex construction, and sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars a pair. Some shoes are designed for specific purposes, such as boots designed specifically for mountaineering or skiing, while others have more generalized usage, such as sneakers, which have transformed from a special purpose sport shoe into a general use shoe. Traditionally, shoes have been made from leather, wood, or canvas, but are increasingly made from rubber, plastics, and other petrochemical derived materials. The shoe industry is $200 billion a year industry. 90% of shoes end up in landfills because the materials are hard to separate, recycle, or otherwise reuse. So friends, now I will tell you about the history of shoes. My friends, the earliest known shoes are sagebrush bark sandals dating from approximately 7000 or 8000 BC, found in the Fork Rock Cave in the US state of Oregon in 1938. The world's oldest leather shoe, made from a single piece of cowhide laced with a leather cord along seams at the front and back, was found in the Areni 1 cave complex in Armenia in 2008 and is believed to date to 3500 BC. Otzi, the Iceman's shoes, dating to 3300 BC, featured brown bearskin bases, deerskin side panels, and a bark string net, which pulled tight around the foot. The Jotunheimen shoe was discovered in August 2006. Archaeologists estimate that this leather shoe was made between 1800 and 1100 BC, making it the oldest article of clothing discovered in Scandinavia. It is thought that shoes may have been used long before this, but because the materials used were highly perishable, it is difficult to find evidence of the earliest footwear. By studying the bones of the smaller toes as opposed to the big toe, it was observed that their thickness decreased approximately 40,000 to 26,000 years ago. This led archaeologists to deduce that wearing shoes resulted in less bone growth, resulting in shorter, thinner toes. These earliest designs were very simple in design, often mere foot bags of leather to protect the feet from rocks, debris, and cold. Many early natives in North America wore a similar type of footwear known as the moccasin. These are tight-fitting, soft-soled shoes typically made out of leather or bison hides. Many moccasins were also decorated with various beads and other adornments. Moccasins were not designed to be waterproof, and in wet weather and warm summer months, most Native Americans went barefoot. As civilizations began to develop, thong sandals, the precursors of the modern flip flop, were worn. This practice dates back to pictures of them in ancient Egyptian murals from 4000 BC. One pair found in Europe was made of papyrus leaves and dated to be approximately 1500 years old. They were also worn in Jerusalem during the first century of the Common Era. Thong sandals were worn by many civilizations and made from a wide variety of materials. Ancient Egyptian sandals were made from papyrus and palm leaves. The Maasai of Africa made them out of raw hide. In India, they were made from wood. In China and Japan, rice straw was used. The leaves of the sisal plant were used to make twine for sandals in South America, while the natives of Mexico used the yucca plant. While thong sandals were commonly worn, many people in ancient times, such as the Egyptians, Hindus, and Greeks, saw little need for footwear and most of the time preferred being barefoot. The Egyptians and Hindus made some use of ornamental footwear such as a sole-less sandal known as a Cleopatra, which did not provide any practical protection for the foot. The ancient Greeks largely viewed footwear as self-indulgent, unaesthetic, and unnecessary. Shoes were primarily worn in the theater as a means of increasing stature, and many preferred to go barefoot. Athletes in the ancient Olympic Games participated barefoot and naked. Even heroes were primarily depicted barefoot. The hoplite warriors fought battles in bare feet, and Alexander the Great conquered his vast empire with barefoot armies. The runners of ancient Greece are also believed to have run barefoot. The Romans, who eventually conquered the Greeks and adopted many aspects of their culture, did not adopt the Greek perception of footwear and clothing. Roman clothing was seen as a sign of power, and footwear was seen as a necessity of living in a civilized world. Although the slaves and paupers usually went barefoot. Roman soldiers were issued with chiral left and right shoe different footwear. Shoes for soldiers had riveted insoles to extend the life of the leather, increase comfortability, and provide better traction. The design of these shoes also designated the rank of the officers. The more intricate the insignia and the higher up the boot went on the leg, the higher the rank of the soldier. There are references to shoes being worn in the Bible. Starting around 4 BC, the Greeks began wearing symbolic footwear. These were heavily decorated to clearly indicate the status of the wearer. Courtesans were leather shoes colored with white, green, lemon, or yellow dyes, and young women, betrothed, or newly married wore pure white shoes. Because of the cost to lighten leather shoes of a paler shade were a symbol of wealth in the upper class. Often the soles would be carved with a message so it would imprint on the ground. Cobblers became a notable profession around this time, with Greek shoemakers becoming famed in the Roman Empire. So friend, Middle Ages and early modern period. A common casual shoe in the Pyrenees during the Middle Ages was the espadrille. This is a sandal with braided jute soles and a fabric upper portion, and often includes fabric laces that tie around the ankle. The term is French and comes from the esparto grass. The shoe originated in the Catalonian region of Spain as early as the 13th century and was commonly worn by peasants in the farming communities in the area. Many medieval shoes were made using the turn shoe method of construction, in which the upper was turned flesh side out and was lasted onto the sole and joined to the edge by a seam. The shoe was then turned inside out so that the grain was outside. Some shoes were developed with toggled flaps or drawstrings to tighten the leather around the foot for a better fit. Surviving medieval turn shoes often fit the foot closely, with the right and left shoe being mirror images. Around 1500, the turn shoe method was largely replaced by the welted ranked method, where the uppers are sewn to a much stiffer sole and the shoe cannot be turned inside out. The turn shoe method is still used for some dance and specialty shoes. By the 15th century, pattens became popular by both men and women in Europe. These are commonly seen as the predecessor of the modern high-heeled shoe, while the poor and lower classes in Europe, as well as slaves in the New World, were barefoot. In the 15th century, the Krakow was fashionable in Europe. This style of shoe is named because it is thought to have originated in Krakow, the capital of Poland. This style is characterized by the point of the shoe, known as the pollen, which often was supported by a whalebone tied to the knee to prevent the point getting in the way while walking. Also, during the 15th century, chopins were created in Turkey and were usually 7 to 8 inches, 17.7 to 20.3 centimeter high. These shoes became popular in Venice and throughout Europe as a status symbol, revealing wealth and social standing. During the 16th century, royalties such as Catherine de' Medici or Mary I of England started wearing high-heeled shoes to make them look taller or larger than life. By 1580, even men wore them, and a person with authority or wealth was often referred to as well-heeled. In 17th century, France, heels were exclusively worn by aristocrats. Louis of France outlawed anybody from wearing red high heels except for himself and his royal court. Eventually, the modern shoe with a sewn-on sole was devised. Since the 17th century, most leather shoes have used a sewn-on sole. This remains the standard for finer quality dress shoes today. Until around 1800, welted rand shoes were commonly made without differentiation for the left or right foot. Such shoes are now referred to as straights. Only gradually did the modern foot-specific shoe become standard. So, industrial era. Now let's start industrial era. Shoemaking became more commercialized in the mid-18th century as it expanded as a cottage industry. Large warehouses began to stock footwear made by many small manufacturers from the area. Until the 19th century, shoemaking was a traditional handicraft, but by the century's end, the process had been almost completely mechanized, with production occurring in large factories. Despite the obvious economic gains of mass production, the factory system produced shoes without the individual differentiation that the traditional shoemaker was able to provide. The first steps towards mechanization were taken during the Napoleonic Wars by the engineer Marc Brunel. He developed machinery for the mass production of boots for the soldiers of the British Army. In 1812, he devised a scheme for making a nailed boot, making machinery that automatically fastened soles to uppers by means of metallic pins or nails. With the support of the Duke of York, the shoes were manufactured and due to their strength, cheapness and durability were introduced for the use of army. In the same year, the use of screws and staples was patented by Richard Woodman. Brunel's system was described by Sir Richard Phillips as a visitor to his factory in Battersea. However, when the war ended in 1815, manual labor became much cheaper and the demand for military equipment subsided. As a consequence, Brunel's system was no longer profitable and it soon ceased business. Similar exigencies at the time of the Crimean War stimulated a renewed interest in methods of mechanization and mass production, which proved longer lasting. A shoemaker in Leicester, Thomas Crick, patented the design for a riveting machine in 1853. His machine used an iron plate to push iron rivets into the sole. The process greatly increased the speed and efficiency of production. He also introduced the use of steam-powered rolling machines for hardening leather and cutting machines in the mid-1850s. The sewing machine was introduced in 1846 and provided an alternative method for the mechanization of shoemaking. By the late 1850s, the industry was beginning to shift towards the modern factory, mainly in the US and areas of England. A shoe stitching machine was invented by the American Lyman Blake in 1856 and perfected by 1864. Entering into partnership with Mackay, his device became known as the Mackay stitching. A shoe stitching machine was invented by the American Lyman Blake in 1856 and perfected by 1864. Entering into partnership with Mackay, his device became known as the Mackay stitching machine and was quickly adopted by manufacturers throughout New England. As bottlenecks opened up in the production line due to these innovations, more and more of the manufacturing stages, such as pegging and finishing, became automated. By the 1890s, the process of mechanization was largely complete. On January 24, 1899, Humphrey O'Sullivan of Lowell, Massachusetts, was awarded a patent for a rubber heel for boots and shoes. A process for manufacturing stitchless, that is glued shoes ago, was developed in 1910. Since the mid-20th century, advances in rubber, plastics and synthetic cloth and industrial adhesives have allowed manufacturers to create shoes that stray considerable from traditional crafting techniques. Leather, which had been the primary material in earlier styles, has remained standard in expensive dress shoes, but athletic shoes often have little or no real leather. Soles, which were once laboriously hand-stitched on, are now more often machine-stitched or simply glued on. Many of these newer materials, such as rubber and plastics, have made shoes less biodegradable. It is estimated that most mass-produced shoes require 1,000 years to degrade in a landfill. In the late 2000s, some shoemakers picked up on the issue and began to produce shoes made entirely from degradable materials such as the Nike considered. In 2007, the global shoe industry had an overall market of $107.4 billion in terms of revenue and is expected to grow to $122.9 billion by the end of 2012. Shoe manufacturers in the People's Republic of China account for 63% of production, 40.5% of global exports, and 55% of industry revenue. However, many manufacturers in Europe dominate the higher priced, higher value added end of the market. As an integral part of human culture and civilization, shoes have found their way into our culture, folklore, and art. A popular 18th century nursery rhyme is There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. This story tells about an old woman living in a shoe with a lot of children. In 1948, Malone Haynes, a shoe salesman in Hallam, Pennsylvania, built an actual house shaped like a work boot as a form of advertisement. The Haynes shoe house was rented to newlyweds and the elderly until his death in 1962. Since then, it has served as an ice cream parlor, a bed and breakfast, and a museum. It still stands today and is a popular roadside attraction. Shoes also play an important role in the fairy tales Cinderella and the Red Shoes. In the movie adaptation of the children's book The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, a pair of red ruby slippers play a key role in the plot. The 1985 comedy The Man with One Red Shoe features an eccentric man wearing one normal business shoe and one red shoe that becomes central to the plot. Athletic sneakers collection has also existed as a part of urban subculture in the United States. For several decades, recent decades have seen this trend spread to European nations such as the Czech Republic. A sneakerhead is a person who owns multiple pairs of shoes as a form of collection and fashion. A contributor to the growth of sneaker collection is the continued worldwide popularity of the Air Jordan line of sneakers designed by Nike for basketball star Michael Jordan. In the Bible's Old Testament, the shoe is used to symbolize something that is worthless or of little value. In the New Testament, the act of removing one's shoe symbolizes servitude. Ancient Semitic speaking peoples regarded the act of removing their shoes as a mark of reverence with approaching a sacred person or place. In the book of Exodus, Moses was instructed to remove his shoes before approaching the burning bush. Put off their shoes from off their feet, for the place whereon thou standest holy ground. Exodus 3:5 its number. The removal of the shoe also symbolizes the act of giving up a legal right. In Hebrew custom, the widow removed the shoe of her late husband's brother to symbolize that he had abandoned his duty. In Arab custom, the removal of one's shoe also symbolized the dissolution of marriage. In Arab culture, showing the sole of one's shoe is considered as an insult, and to throw a shoe and hit someone with it is considered an even greater insult. Shoes are considered to be dirty as they frequently touch the ground and are associated with the lowest part of the body, the foot. As such, shoes are forbidden in mosques, and it is also considered unmannerly to cross the legs and display the soles of one's shoes during conversation. This insult was demonstrated in Iraq first when Saddam Hussein's statue was toppled in 2003. Iraqis gathered around it and struck the statue with their shoes. In 2008, United States President George W. Bush had a shoe thrown at him by a journalist as a statement against the war in Iraq. More generally, shoe throwing or showing the sole of one's shoe or using shoes to insult are forms of protest in many parts of the world. Incidents where shoes were thrown at political figures have taken place in Australia, India, Ireland, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Pakistan, the United Kingdom, the United States, and most notably the Arab world. Empty shoes may also symbolize death. In Greek culture, empty shoes are the equivalent of the American funeral wreath. For many, empty shoes placed outside of a Greek home would tell others that the family's son has died in battle. At an observation memorializing the 10th anniversary of the September 11 attacks, 3,000 pairs of empty shoes were used to recognize those killed. The shoes on the Danube bank is a memorial in Budapest, Hungary. Conceived by film director Can Tuge, he created it on the east bank of the Danube River with sculptor Gyula Pior to honor the Jews who were killed by fascist Arrow Cross militiamen in Budapest during World War II. They were ordered to take off their shoes and were shot at the edge of the water so that their bodies fell into the river and were carried away. The memorial represents their shoes left behind on the bank. So friends, I hope you got many informations from this video. If you think that this video was a little bit interesting and you have got some information, then please press the like button. Bye bye my friends, be safe and sound. Goodbye.